There is a $10 bottle of rust converter sitting on the shelf above my workbench right now. It has been there for 6 years. I bought it at a hardware store in Osaka before I came back to Australia. The label is in Japanese. The product costs about the same as a large coffee. I have used it on 4 cars. None of those cars have a single rust spot on them today. My name is Kenji Nakamura. I was born in Nagoya. My father was a mechanic. His father was a mechanic before him. Between the 3 of us, we have kept cars running for over 60 years. And I have never once recommended that anyone pay a body shop to fix surface rust. Not because body shops do a bad job, because surface rust is not a body shop problem. It is a Saturday morning problem, and it costs almost nothing to solve if you know what you are actually dealing with. I am going to show you exactly what we do, what it costs, where to get it, and then I'm going to tell you something that should make you a little bit angry, which is that every dealership service center in this country has known about this for 30 years, and not one of them will mention it to you, because the thing that actually stops rust is cheap, and it does not require them. Stay with me. By the end of this, you will know how to treat rust on your own car this weekend for less than $20, and your car will look better for it 10 years from now than most cars twice its age. Let me start with what rust actually is, because most people have it wrong, and if you do not understand this, the rest will not make sense. Rust is not dirt. It is not something that lands on your car from outside. It is your own metal eating itself. When bare steel is exposed to oxygen and water at the same time, a chemical reaction starts. Iron in the steel bonds with oxygen and becomes iron oxide. That orange-brown powder you see on the edge of a door panel or along a wheel arch, that is your metal dissolving. And the reason it does not stop on its own is that the rust itself is porous. It holds moisture against the metal underneath it, which means the rust that forms today is helping the rust that forms tomorrow go deeper faster. This is the part the panel shops will not tell you. Most surface rust, the kind you see on the outside of a car as a small bubble or a brownish stain, has not eaten through the metal yet. It is sitting on top of it or just barely into the surface. At that stage, it can be stopped completely in about 40 minutes with $12 worth of product. Left alone for another 12 months, it eats through the panel. And now you need a panel shop, and the job costs $800 instead of $12. The window to fix rust yourself is before it blisters. Before the paint lifts and bubbles up. If you can still press the area and it feels solid, you have not missed your chance. My grandfather used to walk around his cars every few months, running his hand along the lower edges of the doors, the wheel arches, the sills under the doors, the area around the boot lid, and the bottom corners of the windscreen frame. He called it reading the car. He said a car tells you everything if you listen to it. He was looking for the early signs. A faint stain in the paint. A tiny bubble the size of a match head. A spot where the paint looks slightly raised or different in texture. Those are the signs that rust has started underneath, and the metal is still solid enough to treat. If he found one, he dealt with it that weekend. Not next month, not when he had more time, that weekend. Because rust does not wait, and the difference between a $2 fix and an $800 fix is usually about 6 months of ignoring it. Here is what you need. You will find all of this at any hardware store or auto parts shop. First, rust converter. It comes in a small bottle or a spray can. The active ingredient is phosphoric acid. When you brush or spray it onto rust, it reacts with the iron oxide and turns it into iron phosphate, which is black, stable, and no longer corrosive. It doesn't just paint over the rust, it chemically converts it into something that cannot spread. That is the key difference between rust converter and paint. Paint covers, converter neutralizes. Second, a wire brush or sandpaper. 80 or 120 grit is fine. You are not trying to get back to bare shiny metal. You are trying to remove the loose rust, the flaking surface material, so the converter can reach the metal underneath. Third, a can of self-etching primer. It's gray or red, about $12. This goes over the converted rust to give the top coat something to bond to. Fourth, a small can of matched paint or a rattle can in a color close to your car. Even if it is not a perfect match, it will be better than rust. That is the whole kit. About $40 the first time, less after that, because the converter and primer last for multiple jobs. Now here's exactly what my father taught me to do. Find the rust spot. Run your hand over it. If it feels like a raised bubble under the paint, press gently with your thumbnail. If the paint gives or crumbles, the rust is active. If it feels solid, you have caught it early. Either way, the process is the same. Take your wire brush or sandpaper and scrub the area. You want to get rid of anything loose, flaking paint, Loose rust, any material that is not bonded firmly to the metal underneath. Don't worry about getting back to bare steel. Just get rid of the loose material. Wipe it clean with a dry cloth. Apply the rust converter. Brush it on or spray it on. Cover the rust spot completely and go a centimeter or two past the edges. The converter needs to touch every bit of rust to do its job. The product will look dark as it dries. Within a few hours, it will turn black. That black color is the iron phosphate. That is the rust being neutralized. Leave it for the time the label recommends, usually a few hours or overnight. Once it is dry and black, apply 2 thin coats of self-etching primer. Thin coats, not one thick one. Let each coat dry before adding the next. The primer bonds to the converted surface and gives the paint something to grip. Once the primer is dry, paint over it. 2 thin coats again. If you're using a rattle can, hold it about 20 centimeters from the surface and keep it moving. Do not stop in one spot. That is the whole job. 40 minutes of work, less than $40. And that rust spot is stopped. Now I want to tell you about the places where rust starts that most people never look until it is too late. The inside of your doors. Every car door has drain holes at the bottom, small oval holes that let water out. After a few years, they get blocked with dust and debris and small stones that wash in through the window gap when it rains. When those holes block, water sits inside the door skin. The inside of the door rusts from the inside out. By the time you see a bubble on the outside of the door, the inside has been rotting for 2 years. Every 3 or 4 months, take a thin piece of wire, a coat hanger works perfectly, and poke it through those drain holes to clear them out. This takes 2 minutes and costs nothing. It is one of the most important things you can do for the long-term condition of your car. The area behind the wheels. When your wheels spin, they throw water and dirt and road salt, if you are in a place that uses it, directly at the inside of your wheel arches. Most cars have plastic lining in the wheel arches. That plastic comes loose over time. Just slightly. Not enough to fall off. Just enough to let dirt and moisture pack in behind it and sit against the metal. Once a year, take the car to a car wash with a high-pressure hose setting and run it into the wheel arches. Get behind the plastic liner as much as you can. Clear the built-up debris. Then get underneath and look at the metal behind the liner. If you see any orange, treat it before you put the liner back. The seams. Every car body is made of panels welded together at the edges. Those welded seams are treated at the factory with a rubberized sealer. Over 10 or 15 years, that sealer cracks, slightly, not dramatically, and where it cracks, water finds a way in. Walk around your car and look at the seams along the bottom of the car, the joint between the floor and the side panels. If you see the sealer is cracked or missing in spots, buy a tube of seam sealer from any auto parts shop, about $8, and press it into those gaps. Paint over it once it dries. The area around the windscreen and rear window. The rubber seal that holds the glass to the car dries out and develops tiny gaps. Water wicks in behind it and sits against the metal lip that the seal presses onto. That lip rusts and eventually the windscreen starts to leak. Press your thumb around the outer edge of the rubber seal, all the way around both the front and rear windows. If it feels hard and cracked rather than firm and flexible, get it replaced before water has had time to do its damage. A new seal costs far less than cutting out a rusted windscreen frame. Now I want to say something about why Japanese cars from the 80s and 90s are still on the road all over the world, when European and American cars of the same era have mostly turned back to dirt. It is not magic. It is not that the metal was different or that the factories had better equipment. It is 2 things. The first is that Japanese engineers in the 70s and 80s were designing cars for export to some of the harshest conditions in the world: Scandinavia, Canada, the Australian interior. They obsessed over drainage. Every surface was designed to shed water rather than hold it. Every seam was sealed. Every door had working drains. The second thing is the maintenance culture. Japanese car owners of that generation looked after their cars the way my grandfather did. They checked them. They caught problems early. They spent $2 to prevent the $800 repair. The old Toyota Land Cruiser and Hilux trucks that are still working all over Australia, some of them with over 500,000 kilometers on them, are not still running because they were built with special metal. They are still running because someone looked after them, caught the small things early, kept the drains clear, treated the surface rust before it went through. That is the whole philosophy. A car is not a machine that runs until it does not. It is something you can keep running almost indefinitely if you pay attention to it regularly. The industry does not want you to think that way, because an owner who keeps one car for 20 years buys fewer cars. Here is something I want you to know. that the service centers will not tell you. There is a product called cavity wax. You can buy it at any automotive store for about $20 a can. It is a waxy rust inhibitor that sprays as a liquid and then sets into a protective film. It is designed to be injected into the hollow sections of a car's body. The inside of the door pillars, the inside of the sill rails, the box sections that run under the doors along the bottom of the car, the inside of the bumper supports. These hollow sections are where rust starts on older cars. Water gets in, it cannot get out. It sits there for years working through the metal from the inside. You can see the result on any older car with serious rust. The bottom of the door pillars, the sills, the areas around the jacking points under the sill rail. Cavity wax stops this. You drill a small hole in the section if there is not already an access hole. You insert the wax tube, you spray, the wax coats every internal surface. Some sections already have factory holes. The inside of the doors almost always does. You just pull the rubber bung out and spray in through the drain hole. This procedure takes about an hour on a whole car. It costs about $40. Body shops in Scandinavia and Japan have been doing it as a standard service for 40 years. In Australia, it is barely mentioned. Not because it doesn't work, because there is no money in telling you about something you can do yourself in your driveway on a Saturday. I did this on my father's 1988 Land Cruiser 15 years ago. That car is still in the family. The sills are clean, the pillars are clean. It will outlast 3 modern cars assembled with adhesive and plastic fasteners. So here's what I want you to do this weekend. Walk around your car slowly, with your hand running along the lower edges of every panel. The bottom of the doors, the wheel arches, the sill rails underneath. Feel for bubbles in the paint. Look for faint rust staining. Look at the drain holes in the bottom of each door, and make sure you can see daylight through them. If they are blocked, clear them. If you find surface rust that is still solid underneath, treat it. Wire brush, rust converter, primer, paint. 40 minutes, $40, done. Get under the car if you can and look at the seams and the sill rails. If you see cracked sealer or early rust on those internal sections, this is the weekend to deal with it, not next year. If your car is more than 8 years old, buy a can of cavity wax and spend an hour on a Saturday, putting it into every hollow section you can reach. Your door sills, your pillars, inside your doors through the drain holes. It is not dramatic work. It is the kind of work that you will never see the results of, because the results are the rust that never happens. The dealership does not make money from rust prevention. The panel shop makes money from rust that has already gone through. There is no one in the automotive industry whose financial interest is in you maintaining your car so well that you never need to see them. That is the reality of it. My grandfather kept cars his whole life, not because he was unusual, because he paid attention to them. He said the most expensive thing you can own is something you don't take care of. Tell me in the comments what age your car is and where you live. I want to know if you found anything on that walk around this weekend. I read all of them. Next time I'm going to show you what my father used to do to restore faded headlights, the ones that go yellow and hazy over time, which cuts your night vision in half and gets you defected during an inspection. The product he used costs $4 and it is already in most people's homes. They just do not know what it can do. Until then, go look at your car. The rust that you catch this weekend is the rust that never cost you anything.